Okay. Good evening, everyone. This is a regular meeting of the City of Port Hueneme City Council of April 6, 2020. The time is 6:30 p.m. To those who are joining us during our live stream, thank you for joining us for the City Council meeting of April 6, 2020, and we appreciate your patience as we attempt our first virtual City Council meeting. We are all learning as we go, and we appreciate your patience as we conduct this meeting pursuant to the provisions of the Governor's Executive Order number 29-20 and the orders of the Ventura County Public Health Officers Stay Well at Home Order of March 20th, 2020. The health and safety of our community is our first priority, and we'd like to take a moment to thank you and take a moment to thank our healthcare providers, first responders, and essential workers for your bravery and commitment during this time. The council chambers have been closed to the public, and council members and staff are participating remotely to help play our part in minimizing the spread of COVID-19. The public was informed in advance of the meeting on how to submit all public comments and public hearing testimony to our city clerk. The city clerk has compiled all submissions, and those received prior to the 5 p.m. deadline today were forwarded to the entire city council for review prior to the meeting. They will also be read into and part of the official meeting record. As we're going through each agenda item, we typically have a presentation by staff and then have time for council member comments. In order for us to each be heard without talking over each other, I will call on each council member in the same order following each item for them to provide their comments. The order will be council members Berg, Gama, Rollins, Munoz-Schnapp, and then myself, the mayor. We will hear any public comments that have been submitted, after which time I'll ask for a motion and a second for approval and a roll call by the city clerk. To my colleagues, thank you for the time you've spent training for this new technology, and I'll just remind you to please mute your microphones unless it is your turn to talk. I would also like to ask the city manager, city attorney, and city clerk to interrupt us anytime if needed as we go through the agenda. With that, I believe we are all set to get started with the city council meeting. I will now call the meeting to order, and we will start off with the flag salute. So please join me in saluting the flag. Ready? Begin. I pledge
allegiance to the flag
of the
United States of America
and to the republic
for
which it stands,
one nation, under God, indivisible,
with
liberty
liberty
and justice for all. Thank you. Please forgive us for not standing up during the Pledge of Allegiance. We wanted to maintain our camera optics as they are. May I ask the city clerk to please take the roll?
Councilmember Berg.
Here.
Councilmember Gama.
Here.
Councilmember Rollins.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp.
Here.
Mayor Hernandez.
Here. And I also have the pleasure tonight of giving the inspiration for this evening. And with us being in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, there are lots of opportunities to observe moments of inspiration in our community. And there are three groups that I want to acknowledge tonight. And the first group, of course, is our essential workers, beginning with our first responders, our police, fire, even our public works people, our administrative staff, all of those hospital workers, drivers, grocery workers, all the people out there maintaining essential services so that we can stay well at home, deserve our support and deserve our acknowledgement. They are doing a huge part in keeping our communities safe. So I just want to say thank you to them and acknowledge them for staying on the job and doing dangerous work. Hopefully people are practicing self-distancing and wearing masks and taking care of themselves while they're out there. We do know that the public health officer, although he did not recommend wearing the mask, he said that wearing masks would help prevent you from possibly being contaminated with the COVID-19. The second group I want to acknowledge are just our employees themselves here in the city of Port Hueneme. A lot is going on behind the scenes that we are not aware of. We have Sergeant Starna working in the Emergency Operations Center along with Scott, our video technician, and Chief Salinas and his team, our administrative staff here in the city manager's office, and all those other essential workers who are helping maintain and support our field operations as they continue to keep our city running. So I certainly want to say thank you to all staff here in the city of Port Hueneme. And finally, I want to say thank you to our community who have, for the most part, been very cooperative with the orders that we've issued with some of the closures, especially related to the beach closures. Thank you so much for cooperating and supporting our police department and our code enforcement people. We really appreciate your support. To me, that is very inspirational that we can rely on our community to come together and to work with us and make the sacrifices that we need to make during this key and very important time. We are going to be in this for the long run, unfortunately. We've got weeks to go with this. So we feel while these first 2 weeks may have been difficult, we need to brace ourselves for more difficulties in staying home to come. Those will come in the next few weeks. It's going to get tougher and tougher for us, but I trust that our community is going to be there for us. We'll be there for you. We just need everybody's cooperation. So with that, I thank you, and I will go ahead and then continue with the meeting. So with that, we are now on agenda approval for the city council, and I'd like to ask for a motion and a second to approve the agenda, and then I'll take a voice vote.
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, so Rich motioned and seconded by Councilmember Munoz-Schnapp. All in favor? Can I have a voice vote, please? Christy?
Aye.
Oh, everyone, raise their hands, say aye. How about that?
That works.
All right, the council agenda has been approved. We have 2 general public comments that I'll share with you that we received prior to the council meeting. The first is from Jack McGrath. Jack is a resident of Port Hueneme and have resided at the Hideaway development since 2011. He states, I walk my pooch every afternoon at the boardwalk adjacent to the Six Flags area. The walk area is host to senior citizens using walkers, canes, and walking sticks. They are regular users of the beach boardwalk. On any given day, there are younger skateboarders, bicyclists, joggers, runners, dog walkers, and regular walkers. Since the state virus mandate, our citizens have adhered to the 6-foot space between people on the boardwalk. I have observed the beach area since Friday afternoon, April 3rd, and not one person was on any part of the beach. The beach closed signs placed by the city staff at each entrance at the boardwalk reminded our citizens that violating the order was a misdemeanor with a fine and/or jail time. The traffic cones along the street should be removed to allow senior citizens and other runners to continue their physical activity on the beach boardwalk. Many of these people are physical participants on doctor's orders. The city should not prohibit these citizens from increasing their physical capability and possible extension of their life. I request that the city remove all the parking cones on Surfside Drive between Market Street and Ventura Road. This city could then start collecting parking revenue as they have in the past from these boardwalk users. The beach would remain closed to all residents and visitors to Port Hueneme. This proposed change would not undercut the closed beach policy, but would allow many citizens to continue their physical activity on the boardwalk. And as we commonly do, we cannot respond to these public comments, but I will refer this to our police chief to address. So thank you, Jack, for that. We have another public comment from Dolly Knight, and it's addressed to all of us. She states, the Port Hueneme Library has been closed to the public since March 16th. We have locked our book drops and are encouraging patrons to keep any materials they have checked out until we reopen. No fines will be assessed during this closure period. In these difficult times, the Ventura County Library continues to provide services through our website, vencolibrary.org. We offer ebooks, e-audiobooks, and other digital content. All you need is a library card. Don't have a library card? You can register for a temporary card that will give you access to all the resources on our site. Our incredible youth services staff are offering story times and programming for children live on the library's Facebook page, Monday through Friday. Art lessons, bedtime stories, and bilingual story times are also being offered. Our talented web team is working to keep our site and social media updated with the latest news from the library and the county, and to highlight official resources to increase public awareness and understanding of this changing situation. Facilities staff is monitoring our building during this closure. As we assess the situation, we offer more digital programming. Stay tuned. We will reopen when there is a way to do so that will keep our patrons and our staff healthy. Council, staff, and residents are all encouraged to email me at dolly.knight@ventura.org with thoughts. On our website, the Contact a Librarian button on our front page can connect you with technology help and other resources as well. Please stay healthy and stay home. We hope to see everyone again soon. Thanks, Dolly Knight, City Librarian. Thank you so much, Dolly, for that information. We'll make sure that this gets posted also on the city website. Okay, our next item, we're now moving into presentations, is a presentation on Autism Awareness Month, in which we have a proclamation, and I believe Chief Salinas is going to share that proclamation with us. Chief Salinas?
Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, here I am. Okay, so I'd like to start off by reading our Autism Awareness Month proclamation for the month of April of 2020. And once I am done with that, I'll let everyone know on the council as well as in the public as to what we've done and are going to do for the month of April. So April is designated as Autism Awareness Month. And autism, also known as autism spectrum disorder, represents a broad group of disorders that vary widely from mild to severe and is characterized by difficulty with social interaction, communication, severely limited interests, and repetitive behaviors. Whereas the CDC determined that approximately 1 in 54 children is diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder, boys are 4 times more likely to be diagnosed with autism than girls. Most children were still being diagnosed after age 4, though autism can reliably be diagnosed as early as age 2. And whereas the lifelong nature of autism spectrum disorder and other developmental disabilities require a variety of types of assistance at different points in an individual's life, and whereas our understanding of autism has grown tremendously since it was first diagnosed, there was no known cure for autism. Early diagnosis and the resulting appropriate education and intervention are vital to the future growth and development of the individual. And whereas a variety of public and private organizations and agencies strive to provide quality care, support, or services to children and adults with ASD to enable them to live as independently as possible and to reach their full potential. And whereas hope lies in a broad spectrum of treatments and an informed public and community committed to providing support and service to individuals diagnosed with autism spectrum disorders. And whereas the Port Hueneme Police Department will wear customized autism police patches as an outward expression of our inner commitment to connect with our community, to create awareness and support those dealing with this lifelong neurological disorder. And now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of Port Hueneme joins the Autism Society of Ventura County and hereby recognizes April 2020 as Autism Awareness Month and encourages all residents to participate in programs and outreach efforts aimed towards educating and supporting autism awareness at first. So with that, as many of you have read, the Port Hueneme Police Department is participating in Autism Awareness Month. We have created custom design patches which will help to increase awareness throughout the community and raise money to be donated to the Autism Society of Ventura County. Port Hueneme police officers and community service officers will wear the patches on their uniforms over the course of the month to help promote awareness of the autism spectrum disorder, or ASD. Several of our officers were scheduled to participate in the Ought to Run fundraiser at Cal State Channel Islands on April 26th, but it was unfortunately canceled. They are looking at rescheduling the event for later this year, and we plan on being there again. If our viewers didn't know, the Autism Society of Ventura County supports and helps individuals with autism and their families with resources and referrals, including Port Hueneme. We encourage our community to join us in our journey to bring more awareness to autism by purchasing a patch to help support this worthy cause. So beginning this past April 3rd, those interested in purchasing an autism patch can send a check to the Port Hueneme Police Explorers during the month of April. They may also send a Venmo payment to @PortHueneme-Explorers. So for more details, people can visit our Facebook page. All proceeds will be donated directly to the Autism Society of Ventura County at the end of April. Unfortunately, residents will not be able to purchase the patches at the police station or with cash, because as you know, we are limiting access, public access to the Port Hueneme Police Department at this time due to COVID-19. So with that, if anyone has any questions in regards to Autism Awareness Month and how we are celebrating it and bringing more awareness to our community, I'd be more than happy to answer those questions.
Any questions for Chief Salinas? Okay, hearing no question. Oh, Councilmember Munoz-Schnapp.
Yeah, thank you, Chief Salinas, for bringing us this program to recognize. The police side has actually participated a couple of years now with this opportunity to help the community.
Very nice.
That's what actually the police patch looks like on our uniform right now.
Very nice. Well, thank you, Chief, for that presentation.
Mayor
And
Hernandez.
Yes,
I
Councilman Gama?
Yeah, I was under the impression that we're going to go down the line in order for comments, or
Well, I was just asking for a raise of hand at this point.
okay. So I am an enthusiastic member of Team Sunny Like the Day, and ironically, Chief Salinas ran for Sunny Like the Day, I think last year and the year before. I'm such an enthusiastic supporter of Sunny Like the Day. I have 12 of his t-shirts, and he's a family member of ours, and we just love him so much, and he's just a joy to be around. And if you ever get a chance, that fundraising effort at Channel Islands is by far one of the best fundraising efforts I've ever seen and been. It's an outstanding event. So look forward to seeing Chief running again. I have to walk because of my knees, but really appreciate supporting Sunny Like the Day. And thank you very much for bringing this to our attention.
Thank you, Councilman Gama. Councilman Berg, do you have any comments? Councilman Rollins? Okay.
No.
Thank you very much, Chief.
Thank you.
Okay, we're moving on now to the consent agenda, and I'll go ahead and read the titles of the items and then take a motion. Item number 2, approve minutes of the City Council for the regular meeting of March 16th, 2020. The recommendation is to approve the minutes. And it's, let's see, where's my page 3? Approve finance cash disbursements for March 6, 2020 through March 27, 2020. The recommendation is ratify the disbursements. Item number 4, adopt a resolution authorizing staff to operate the senior nutrition program in cooperation with the County of Ventura. And the recommendation is to adopt the resolution authorizing the Community Services and Recreation Programs Manager to contract with the Ventura County Area Agency on Aging for the city to continue day-to-day site operations for the senior nutrition program. May I have a motion and a second?
Move to approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, so Councilman Rollins has made the motion to approve and Councilman Berg has provided the second. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I'd like to discuss item number 3.
Okay, so you want to pull item number 3 for discussion?
Yes.
Okay. So do we want to go ahead and vote on the rest of the agenda and then take item 3? Can I get some direction here?
Yes, we'll do a roll call. The roll call will be for the motion that was made, but for items number 2 and 4. So Councilmember Rollins,
Yes.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp,
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez.
Yes.
Okay, item 2 and 4 were approved, and we'll pull item 3 for discussion.
Okay.
I am asked for this to be pulled because we are approving bills that have already been paid. And I've been tracking our city attorney bills, and for this 2-month, I think it's for 2 months, but the registry is for March 3rd through March 27th. However, I believe the payments are for 2 months, which kind of is a little odd to me. But more importantly, those payments appear, I did a quick total and it's like $69,000. So I just want to bring that to everyone's attention that a year ago we were questioning the level of those attorney fees at $20,000, and we were told it was primarily due to cannabis implementation of cannabis. And so you know, we don't have a chance to review these bills, and they've already been paid, but I just want to make sure everyone's aware that they are at that level. So that's the reason why I pulled it. I don't plan on voting against approving the finance cash disbursements, but I thought it was important to just identify that issue.
And this is in relationship specifically to the city attorney billing. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And we do have access to view those billings. They've been made available to us through the city manager's office, I understand. Okay. All right, well, are there any comments? Councilman Berg,
No.
Councilman Rollins,
No.
Councilwoman Munoz-Schnapp?
No.
Okay. All right, I have no comments on that. Okay, may I have a motion and a second to adopt the finance cash disbursements for March 6th through March 27th, 2020?
Move
No
to
move.
approve.
I'll second that.
Okay, Christy, did you catch that?
I did. I got Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp first, and I have Councilmember Berg
Okay,
as a second,
Yes.
and Councilmember Gama.
okay. So can I have a roll call vote, please?
Okay. Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp,
Yes.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins,
Yes.
Mayor Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion
Okay.
passes.
Thank you. Motion carries. We are now moving into public hearing on item 5. The public hearing is amendments to Article 7, Chapter 1 of the City Municipal Code and adoption of a resolution regarding utility billing policy and procedures in accordance with SB 998. The hearing is now open. It is 6:54 p.m. Do any members of the council have any conflicts to disclose?
No.
Councilman Rollins,
No.
Councilman Berg,
No.
Councilmember Munoz-Schnapp,
No.
Councilman Gama.
No.
Okay. Madam Clerk, do you have proof of publication as required by law?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
Do we have a complete file of reports and exhibits?
Yes, we do.
Will staff please present the report? I believe our report is coming from Ken McDonald, our finance director.
Hi, everyone. How are you doing?
Good evening.
We have in front of us the results of the California passed Senate Bill 998, which is new rules for shutoff and collection of utility bills. We've combined with that our change to monthly billing also, but it's really just to administratively catch up with that. If there's any details, Kevin was extremely instrumental in getting these this new Senate bill implemented into what we have in front of us.
Does that conclude your presentation?
Yeah, this one's pretty short and sweet.
Okay. Does the council have any questions of staff? Councilman Gama? Any questions? Councilman Rollins?
No.
Councilman Berg?
Yeah, I do have a little bit. Thank you. Ken, what changes are in this that are different from, say, a year ago?
They've extended out the time that we would normally, under past rules, shut somebody off for non-payment. So it's basically another unfunded state mandate where they're requiring us to extend more credit to all our customers before we can disconnect the service.
Okay.
It would have been much more crucial having a 2-month billing. So by going to a monthly billing also, we're kind of addressing this issue at the same time when we're instituting our new rate plan that's taking effect.
Okay, so one big item of change is going to be a monthly now utility bill instead of every other month.
Yes, so everybody will have, theoretically half the normal bill every month rather than, the bi-monthly. So I think it will help everybody balance their personal budgets a little better. And then with everything going on right now, we've kind of put everything on hold, and really we're working with our citizens and customers to keep everything going and keep the service for them if they want it. If they've moved out of the area, then we'll disconnect it for them. But it seems like the public has been real pleasant to work with through this stressful time.
Okay, thank you. And are we doing this as a mandate, or why are we going monthly now instead of every other month?
The monthly change to billing was really our own call. That it just happened to be good timing with the rate structure that was going in and the Senate Bill 998 that we had to address also. So it was kind of a combining of efforts for efficiency.
Anybody else have questions? Councilwoman Munoz-Knop, do you have any questions?
Yes, thank you, Mr. McDonald. So did our customers get either notification that we were going to monthly in the last couple of bills and or online? And then how would we then continue this notification?
We have sent out flyers. I think the half of the citizens got them in the current month, and the next will get them in the next month. So I think 50% of our customers have gotten that notification. And the reason why we're going to be working with them is because let's say my bill just came out now for a 2-month bill, and we change next month, I'll get a single month within a month. So we're going to work with everybody to get them to convert from a bi-monthly bill to a monthly bill.
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have one question for you, Mr. McDonald, and that is, do we have an idea of what the cost differential is from going from 2 months to mailing something out every 2 months versus mailing something out once a month?
Yeah, we will have an increased bill printing cost and distribution. That's through one company that we do business, and then also our meter reading that is done. That will increase too. It hasn't, I mean, although by simple default it should double, we've gotten some efficiencies in where the cost is a little less than that, but it's probably about 40% more.
Okay, in dollar amount, do we know what those costs are?
I don't have them in front of me, but I do have them. It's 2 vendors specifically that we work with, and we're working on those for changes to our next year budget projections when we bring those forward.
Okay. Could you perhaps follow up and provide us those costs, amounts
Sure,
later?
that would be real easy.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Okay. Okay, we have no one, no public comment. Does staff have any further comments? If there's no further discussion, we'll close the public hearing. The time being 7 o'clock. We have before us a recommendation, and I will go ahead and read that recommendation again. Recommendation 1, introduce the first reading, waiving full reading of text, and consider adoption of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Port Hueneme, California, amending Article 7, Chapter 1, Section 7102.5, 7102.10, 7102.15, 7102.25, 7103, and 7108 of the City of Port Hueneme Municipal Code to achieve compliance with Senate Bill 998 relating to residential water policies. Number 2 recommendation, adopt a resolution of the City Council of the Port Hueneme, California, City of Port Hueneme, California, adopting a new utility billing policy and procedures in accordance with Senate Bill 998. May I have a motion and a second?
Move approval.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All right. I'd like to ask the clerk now for a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Burke,
Yes.
Councilmember Rollins,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes, and I do have one comment, didn't get recognized, but is this going to be impacted by COVID-19 and some of the recent legislation regarding termination of services? It's my understanding that the process will be a lot longer than what this first reading is.
Ken, I can step in and handle that if you like.
Thank you.
Recently, April 3rd, Governor Newsom signed an executive order that forbids cities from being able to cancel or disconnect residential water services, as well as commercial water service for critical infrastructure sectors. And so this is going to last likely through, I believe it was June 31st. And so right now, the executive order supersedes SB 998. So even if somebody were not to pay their water bills right now, we still wouldn't be able to proceed under this ordinance while the emergency executive orders are in effect. I hope that helps.
Thank you for that clarification, and I voted yes.
Thank you. So the motion carries.
sorry, Mayor, let me finish. I don't think I got Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, and Mayor Hernandez, your vote.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank
Motion
you.
passes
Sorry about that.
unanimously.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Ken. All right, moving on to item 6. This also falls under the this is a business item falling under the Finance Department. Item 6 is the City Financial Update Mid-Year 2019-2020 Budget Review. And we're asking our Finance Director, Ken McDonald, to present this report.
Yep, I'm on a roll now.
Okay.
Well, we start out with our 2019-20 mid-year budget review, and we'll go into tonight's actions and steps. See, we're trying to change page. There we go. Tonight, we'll look at this. We'll discuss at the end of the budget recommendations. We have some reserve recommendations, and the item 3 is approving the budget adjustments. We're kind of getting a preliminary outlook of everything we have in the budget, and we're projecting about a $1.6 million surplus at the end of the year. First, we'll talk about the general fund revenues. Exactly the probably worst time we could have come up with this. We did some revenue recommendations, and then COVID-19 came up. So we've been working on some of those, and we've tried to reflect the most recent data that we have in these projections. What I think we've been finding out from some of our consultants and some of the analysis we've done is that we will start seeing the delays in the timing of the revenue. So the revenue will come in, it will just come in a little later, but we may see an impact and a reduction next year. So we're going to analyze next year's expenses and revenues and bring that back in front of the council probably in a month or two, maybe when this has started to settle down, so we can kind of address and see what kind of impact it will have on us. Our revenues are very conservative, and we've started with that perspective. The biggest impact that everybody's going to see is in sales tax production. A lot of these things that are going on are having a direct result in what dollars businesses are able to collect and how they can remit that. So we will start seeing some decreases in there, but I think that we've got a solid enough year going on so far that I don't think, I think we'll still be able to make our revenue projections. Obviously the largest revenue source in the city is sales tax. We get 2.5% of the 8.75% sales tax that's charged. And it's really 26% of the overall general fund revenue. Our property tax dollars, that one's the real difficult one to kind of estimate, because there is some thought that it may create a delay in sales, but whether it creates a decrease in property value is the million-dollar question. I think our values have been going up and will probably hold, but we could see some small decreases in that. And so we're looking to our expert HDL that gives us revenue projections on those to give us some updates in the next 3 months. When we look at our total revenues from the year, we're doing really well. I think the best one is the cannabis revenue that's been coming in. It's gotten up there as much as the port revenue that's in there, which is arguably the largest customer that the city has to produce revenue for us. And it's been doing really well. When we go forward, we will have our general fund expenditure projections, and that will kind of get into the meat and potatoes of where we're spending our money and how it's been coming out. When we went through some of those, we found that our expenditures overall were about 40% at the 50% mark for the year. So we're doing really, really well in containing our costs and keeping those items down. We've taken in the vacancies that have been coming into play and what we'll be able to fill throughout the rest of the year. And we've made some salary reductions to reflect those and basically get our year-end expenditure projections pretty well set in what we're going to. The next slide I have in there goes over overall actual year-to-year spending and the changes between the years. Everybody knows how we had all those decreases. You see those come up. And then our changes recently where we're increasing and going a little bit higher to kind of catch back up on some of the items that we've fallen behind for in the past. The next chart we have shows the general fund revenues and expenditures kind of tracking together, with the revenues being the green line, the expenditures being the red line, to show how they've kind of gone along paced with each other. That's why we haven't seen a lot of severe reserve balance decreases during this economic time that we went through. And then our major budget issues now and going to be into the future are going to be the PERS rate increases that we have, the employee obligations that we have under our current MOUs, and then there's unfunded stormwater mandates that are dealing with our assessment district for stormwater, and then some of the other things. We kind of focused into the PERS rate increases with the unfunded liability. The next one we're going to talk about is the unassigned fund balance in the general fund, which is kind of like our overall nest egg and the amount that we have that's spendable that we can actually use. The next slide gives you a simple overview of how our beginning fund balance starts. We add to that our yearly surplus or deficit to get to our ending balance. And then the one below shows our projections, what we have starting and what we estimate to be at the year's end. And from that, we'll come up with some conclusions that our sales tax revenue had some one-time increases of $650,000 from prior years. So we won't be able to sustain the level that we have this year and future years, but it does come at the right time from past years' sales. The property tax valuations will see some potential increases, but there is the potential of decreases if property values decline with the current crisis that we have going on. And then we have our revenue estimates that are overall higher than originally budgeted because of actual numbers coming in. And then our expenditures were actually overestimated because we hadn't had a lot of positions filled, and we did have a lot of cost savings in place. And tonight, we'll deal with some specifics on any questions that the council has, approve any budget adjustments, and discuss about reserve recommendations, which we had at the end of the staff report, that we're suggesting putting some of those reserves towards some of our unfunded liabilities in a specific plan, like we had been talked to before from, I think it was Pete Constant. Right now, we have most of the department heads and myself available for any questions and can go on from there.
Okay, thank you, Mr. McDonald. Councilman Berg, do you have any comments?
I do, thank you. Thank you, Ken. Good report, brief and to the point. You indicated 26% of our revenue was sales tax?
Repeat that last part?
26% of our revenue is the sales tax?
Yes.
What do you think is going to happen to that? I don't think we're making a lot of sales in the shopping centers these days.
No, I think we're gonna see some decreases from it, but well, like I think some of the cities, from some of the discussions that I've been a part of, they're seeing is going to be some items that, like, we don't have a lot of new car sales that are here, but we will see some of those decreases. I'm getting an update at the end of this month from HDL on sales tax through the end of December, and we will be working with them on improved updates that'll come in the next 3 months.
Okay. I do have some questions also regarding the stormwater mandates, but I'm not sure you're the one to answer those that question. Or can you tell us a little bit about the mandates for stormwater runoff?
Well, I think our stormwater assessment district has not generated enough collections to cover the costs of maintaining those facilities. So I think that's one of the items that was kind of related in there, is the general fund has been subsidizing that item. Now, Don may be able to give some more details from that, because I know it was an ongoing item that he and I have been working with.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you want to hear from Don? Councilman Berg?
Is he available?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay. A couple of things with the stormwater management. There's we'd cover part of it. For example, putting in trash racks and things like that with solid waste. Trash racks as far as like the catch basins or those things. And so some of that is covered there. Some of it is also covered through the assessment district. What is being tried, and I'm not sure what jurisdiction is doing it, is they're looking at doing a 218 process for stormwater and basically having it become a utility. And that process is being championed in Northern California. And I get together with the other public works directors once a month, and that's been a hot topic. And we're looking for that to develop. Also, the county takes the lead for the stormwater permit. And we're waiting for feedback from the LA board to give us more direction on that. So that will be forthcoming in the next couple of years.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Okay. Councilman Gama, you had a question for Don?
Yes. So an item came up regarding a trash boom in the J Street. Is that called a runoff channel or a storm channel? I'm not quite sure, but I do know it's governed by the county of Ventura. So is the trash boom a part of storm runoff?
That would be, that channel is under the jurisdiction of the Ventura County Watershed Protection District. And that would fall under their jurisdiction for collecting trash, et cetera. I did make contact with them about 3.5 weeks ago. But right now with the current health crisis, that is a low priority. And their staff is working remotely. So I can't give you an update on anything as far as that trash rack. Hopefully in a month or two, when this calms down, I'll be able to circle back and get you more information.
Yeah, I understand the priorities right now with COVID, but I just do want to inform all that the level of trash coming out through that area, it's just mind-boggling. Syringes, and it is hazardous waste, and there's, I mean, it's just overwhelming. And so I'm hopeful that we can take care of our environment at some point in the future.
Anything else, Councilman Gama? Nothing else, Councilman Gama?
No.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Rollins?
I just had 3 things that I wanted some clarification. We have a number of unfilled positions. I think it was, if I read right, we have the equivalent of savings of 1.32 million of unfilled positions. Is that correct or not?
That was for the entire year.
Yeah,
You know,
for-
from our projections in July to our calculations now, I was shocked when that came through, and I did a couple independent calculations to make sure those analyses were correct, because we had approved the budget before we had completed the MOUs. So none of those changes were in there, were reflected in there. But those changes that represented increases, and then we had the decreases from unfilled positions, it really was overwhelming how large it was.
So my concern or question would be, if we are we going to fill all those, is the plan to fill all those positions, or to hold off on filling those positions based on the economic climate? In other words, if we were to fill all those positions, would we still be able to balance the budget with the same expenditures, and even if the revenue stayed the same? Or are we going to have to make some adjustments as a result of that?
I think the safe, simplistic way would be is, let's say that 1.3 million in salary savings wasn't there because we had all these positions filled last July. I think we would only have a $400,000 surplus at this year end with everything in there. So it would come right off of that 1.6 million surplus. So that's why I want to come back and analyze next year to make sure all those things are in play and we can balance it out and continue to balance it.
Okay, so number 2 question, and I'm not sure where I read in here, but was there an unexpected increased expense by the city of Oxnard charging us? It looked like a large amount of money that they charge us for some kind of water or sanitation.
Yeah, we pay them, City of Oxnard runs our wastewater treatment plant. So they're kind of like our wholesale provider. And there's been some issues with them sending correct and proper billing to us. So, but that one is not a general fund item. It's the wastewater fund. So that one is kind of a separate item, but we have been trying to get that straightened out. And there's been some disagreements with them that goes long before my time here.
So are we, I mean, I think it was well over $500,000. Are we going to be able to adjust that in the future?
Well, we're already budgeting for what we would assume is our share of the cost. Now they're sending us some billing items that get into legal issues that I can't really address, but we estimate what the total cost of all our residents' sewer treatment would be and budget for that accordingly.
Okay, and then
if we have past, I was going to say, even if we have past years we still have an estimate and we will book the expense of what we'll eventually pay to them, because there was a time where June 30th rolls around, the end of the accounting year, and we still owed them some balances. Now I think we've gotten it caught up to the current amount, and it's just how they're applying those payments as to where their dispute is.
And so on page 12, it says anticipated general fund one-time revenues, and it has $2.4 million for sale of general fund owned land. Can you clarify what, I mean, that's big about it. We're showing that we're bringing in $2.4 million extra from revenue for general fund owned land.
I think that might be the former Hueneme Marine Supply Building. I think that's the only one that's general fund that's like, because the marketplace one, that one's owned by the Redevelopment Successor Agency. I think that's the one is the Hueneme Marine Supply there at Surfside and Hueneme Road.
So I've heard are we anticipating that they're going to be bringing in the money this year? I know we're leasing that for a certain period of time, but I didn't get the impression that all this money's coming in.
Well, it's a one-time item, and the timing of that would be a winning lottery ticket. I think if I could pick that out in advance. There's so many items that are beyond our control that, it's going to take the other person. That's going to be the tough one.
So it's kind of we're not anticipating too heavily on that.
Yeah, it's one of those things that we know it's coming in, but we just don't know when. And we haven't budgeted for that revenue specifically, but it will eventually come in.
Okay. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman Munoz-Snopes, do you have anything?
Yes, I do. So thank you, Ms. McDonald, for preparing the presentation as well as the documents that we have in front of us. I had a question regarding the budget detail that you have, and it was under the crossing guards expenditures. And I know that we had actually shared that expense with the Hueneme School District.
Crossing guard, is that what you said?
Right, yeah.
Gotcha.
On page 35 of the detail.
Yeah, that's a specific contract.
Yeah, so in the past, I think we were the lead agency, but we could expect some money from the school district. I think we have and took care of 50% on each side. Is that still the same situation?
I know I checked the expense side cost, but I wasn't thinking that the school district, do they pay it directly to the crossing guard or do they pay it to us?
I think they pay it to us. And this was arranged several years ago, prior to even the current superintendent. What was that? I'm sorry.
It's happened a few years before this current year?
Yes, it was actually, yeah.
I found it. It's on page 22 of the revenue estimates.
Okay.
And it shows that it was originally budgeted at 32,000 and we've gotten 13,900 so far.
And that's the 32,000 is our side?
Yeah, so, and that fits into what you were saying is they were contributing 50% because we have 64 budgeted.
Yeah, okay. I just wanted to make sure that that was still in order for us. And then I also
verify it myself.
Yeah, okay, thanks. And then I also wanted to make sure that the what Councilmember Rollins asked about was the wastewater, because I saw that detail coming in where it was, I think, 400,000 higher than what we had planned.
Yeah, and we've tried to reflect those in as to what we know it should be at. And I think that's, yeah, Fund 447. So it starts on page 54. And
And so it starts on page 54, but is it, I can't. Is it infrastructure fee? Oh, for contract
No, that
service?
operating transfer out, that one is the wastewater's fund share of the NG project's capital. Because we found out it was easier for us to account for the NG project in its own fund. All the other ancillary funds are providing transfers to them to fund their operation there.
Okay. What line are you looking at for that one?
That one is the very last line. It would be on page 55, right above where it says solid waste
Oh,
expenditures.
yeah, operating transfer out. Okay.
Yeah, and then if you go on the page before, it'll have, now maybe 3/4 of the way down, CONTSVCS for contract services, Oxnard SW dump, and that's the one that's in there for 900,000. Now that one we don't have any change for, so a lot of the comments that have been going around about that are not, let's say, well-formed and accurate as to what our position is and what we believe. Charlie has been really leading the way and handling on this, so that's kind of a legal issue that I haven't been involved in, other than paying the bills when they come to us.
So we've then allocated money just in case we end up with that this is the final bill, but we're still
Yeah.
working out the details.
Yeah, we haven't budgeted for it, but the wastewater fund has adequate reserves to cover it. But we want to make sure that that what they're billing us is correct. We had found out that they were sending the bill to somewhere else, not even to the city. So it was a real problem getting some of that billing straightened out. We've tried to get it what we feel is fair, but I don't know if they take the same position or have applied those payments as such.
I know they've had quite a number of people coming in and or exiting there for a number of years. So hopefully we can get that under, under some kind of detail that we know it's going to be what we expect. So I'm sure you're on top of that issue. And then one last question, and I have on page 111, as you went through each of the departments and focused in on what changes were and if it was a vital need or wanted situation. So this is under salary and benefit savings, wastewater fund. And so this is savings that you project out of $200,000 for staff that has not been hired. Is that correct?
Yes, basically 3 positions. There hasn't been a water resource inspector in there for a while. So that one's been vacant all year. I'm not even sure I'm not even sure of the recruitment status with that one. The wastewater maintenance workers, the 2 positions that are there. I know at this place, no exception, but every city I've been at, it's getting harder and harder to get skilled certified maintenance plant workers for wastewater and water treatment.
Okay. And then overall, when you project out that we will have a contribution to the general fund of 1.6 million, how much of that is the unfilled or these vacant positions that maybe will not be there in the upcoming year?
Well, this one that we were just talking about was wastewater, but the 1.3 million I was referring to before was all the positions in the general fund impact there. So if we continued like as we were before, I think we would see our salary and benefits costs way down. We've been trying to get our human resources department up and running because a lot of the savings that I had in my department, if I would have had my choices, I would have had them filled right away rather than waiting. But because everybody had employment needs, we kind of had to triage who could get their human resources needs filled first as we went through the year. It's been a real financial savings for us because we really haven't sacrificed our service level to the public as much as the savings represent. But I think that's a testament to all our staff and how hard they're working to make up for any vacancies that we have.
absolutely, thanks. But I think in these, you know, these unprecedented times that we're in, we have to be really cautious if we're gonna move forward and fill these vacancies. So I know, Mr. City Manager, you're probably reviewing this every day as though it's on your dashboard, but certainly I think we need to be really cautious as to filling these positions.
Yes, we're at about 79% of our full employment, our full employment according to the budget. Although we had excelled in investing in recruitment and hiring. In fact, we hired a new deputy finance director today. Much of the other activities in terms of recruitment have been in a quasi standby, as many of the the systems that support recruiting and onboarding have been put into standby during this emergency declaration.
That's it for my questions. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any comments?
Councilman Gama.
Okay, go ahead, Councilman Gama.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, for those questions, because you just brought my attention to page 112. And so Ken, what I'm wondering is, this is a budget adjustment of $650,000 upward for contract services Oxnard wastewater plant. So I think I know the answer, but I'll ask the question anyways. So these contract services are going to be ongoing regardless of whether those positions are filled or not. And I apologize for Jackson barking.
Yeah, this one. Oh yeah, this is a reduction in salary and benefits for the solid waste operator and admin specialist vacant in that department.
No, Ken, I'm referring to page
Oh, wait, you're on
112.
page 112, right?
Yes, 112. There's a budget increase of $650,000. The approved budget was 1.8, and it's going up to 2.4 million.
You know what? We might have found something that didn't make it forward, because that, I think that relates right to what I was just discussing with Councilmember Munoz-Schnapp. Oh no, okay, it's in there. I was on the wrong line, so I was thinking there was no change and we didn't have it added in there. But that is that one that's on page 53. It's the contract services Oxnard wastewater plant, 1.8 million, adding 650,000 to it to bring the yearly amount to 2.4 million.
So my question is, what's the explanation for that dramatic increase?
That's more in what Oxnard is saying is their cost to operate. But I don't really have any of the details in this, because this is a legal matter that's kind of, I think, been discussed with council. I haven't been involved in that. They've been sending us bills, and then we have our team review them to make sure they're accurate and adequate to pay. But some of their disputes and some of the items they've come up with, I'm not involved in.
If council is up, could you provide just a status on that issue between Oxnard and Port Hueneme, please?
I don't have a bunch of relevant information at my fingertips at the moment. My understanding is that there was an increase in fees, and the city was not receiving its bills. There were several clerical errors, which resulted in payments going into arrears. And I know that right before the COVID-19 crisis, I believe the city manager's office, I believe then interim manager Chief Salinas, had been talking with Oxnard to schedule a sit-down meeting of sorts. And I don't know what the outcome of that was, or if it was able to come off as a result of the current pandemic. But I do believe that matter is on the verge of resolution. I can probably look into it and provide a council memo for information only a little bit later this week.
Yeah, the scheduled meeting that you referred to was scheduled after the emergency declaration never occurred, and no further activity on that particular issue has moved forward.
Okay.
Councilman Gama, do you have any further on that question?
No, thank you.
Okay. Anybody else?
Uh, I had one that was reflecting on what Mr. McDonald had said about the order of recruiting the various different people. Is there a top 2 or 3 that they're currently recruiting for right now? What are the next ones that we hope to add on to the city staff?
Well, I would be only being self-serving and saying the finance department's the most important, but there's only a couple vacancies that I have in my department, so I'm not really involved with that. I've tried to be as patient as possible when I had my positions filled. The ones that were the most important, I got filled. My payroll person that retired after a long time. So I've gotten a lot of that staff in. The next position I've got to get filled is a pending retirement around December. So we should have adequate time with our buildup in human resources and going that direction.
From the city manager's perspective, and specifically emphasized during this current crisis, Public Works, some management, but also some key positions within Public Works require an expedited and aggressive recruiting in order to shore up that particular department.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there are no more questions for Mr. McDonald, I'd like to have a moment here to ask some questions that I have. One does relate to the item on page 112 regarding the Oxnard wastewater plant. And it's more of a process question, I guess you'd say. And it could have to do with the rest of the adjustments that we're talking about here. Is how do these get approved? If we vote on this tonight, are we in essence saying that we approve a $650,000 adjustment to go to the Oxnard wastewater treatment plant? If we don't know really what that is for, or if there's some controversy over that, do we want to pull that item and not approve it, or what's?
No, that's going to be really our best estimate as what we'll need for the year end based on what we feel the rate should be. So if we say we put another $1 million on there just to account for it, even though we didn't think we would need it, it would not give Oxnard any justification for increasing the billed amount, because we know the waste flow going to them, and they have a certain rate that they charge us for that. So it really, no matter what we set the budget at, it's really for our own management purposes. They can't use that against us to say, oh, you budgeted more money, we want to charge you more.
Okay. And just for our purposes, if council approves this tonight, we won't have staff come back and say, well, you approved this at your April 6th meeting, so we move forward with it.
No, I think what we've taken and what I've seen is that we are trying to make sure we're treating them fair, just like we want our customers to treat us fair by paying the correct rates. But we have to bill our customers the correct rates to get paid the correct amount. And that's all we're asking from them.
Okay. So my next question is thank you for that, Mr. McDonald, appreciate it.
You're welcome.
My next question is for our city manager. And again, this goes back to all these adjustments here. Like, this is a mid-year process, I understand that, but we're seeing some pretty significant adjustments in here. And I'm looking at the forms, and at the bottom of the form, it says status of DP, and there's 3 places there to mark either approved, pending more information, or not approved. Who marks that? Who approves that? Do we have a?
The council approves it. We provide the recommendation, and because it is a budget correction, the council must approve it.
Yeah, I think the DP is department proposal. I was actually thinking, what does DP stand for?
Okay, department of proposal, and so that's up to us then to approve each one of these.
Well, they're listed out individually to give the detail for each line.
Right.
but really, I wouldn't want everybody to have to sit here and go page by page. We've taken those and moved them forward. This is where I have to apologize to Councilmember Schnapp that I was looking at the solid waste Oxnard payment, not the wastewater one, which was on the page before. That's why I didn't see the adjustment. And then when Stephen Gama pointed it out, I realized, oh yeah, there is an increase in here. So I was just on the wrong page, which I'm kind of embarrassed as the accountant to be able to do that. But
I was on the wrong page too.
one
so-
number different.
Okay. Well, my
Thank-
question really has to do with the approval process of these, and who approves them before they get to city council?
It basically, they're submitted by department heads. We compile them together. I bring them to the city manager, and then he basically is the last staff level approval. I think in sensitivity to him being new, we could have been ready for this a couple weeks earlier, but it didn't give him enough time to kind of review it. And then with everything kind of just starting off, we said, yeah, let's hold back. And so we went through and did some more revenue projections and kind of, I think, tightened them up with what we've had, say, 2 weeks ago or a week and a half ago. Even I think if I was going to do it today, I could probably constantly come out with some further reductions. I don't think it's going to be serious, large material amounts, but as this goes longer and longer, I think it'll make our ability to more accurately estimate the impacts from it, further on. But
Okay.
I have to get a stopping point eventually.
Okay. All right, thank you. I've got a couple of more questions, one having to do with the analysis, and I'd like to see more detailed analysis when you present these reports in the future, to include maybe some information from the Economic Development Collaborative and some of the sources that they use, so that we kind of take more of a micro look at how this is impacting the city of Port Hueneme. I know it's really hard to get down to that level, but I know that the Economic Development Collaborative, the EDC, puts out some really good information. And if we could take advantage of that and use that as part of the analysis, I would encourage you to do so in the future when we put these reports
Well,
together.
we definitely do, from them, from HDL, from a few other partners. I could probably include that information when it comes available, or include that in the packet. It would have added probably another 40 or 50 pages for the different reports that we get to back up some of our projections.
Well,
I
I'm
don't
not
mind,
looking for- yeah, I'm
sharing
not
that with
looking-
you. It is public information.
I'm not looking for the full report. I'm just looking for a summary, maybe an assessment, a quick paragraph on, for instance, the projections that we might be looking at 20 to 30% unemployment rate in Ventura County, and how is that going to impact our community here in Port Hueneme? So that could be accomplished in one paragraph.
Yes, Mayor, we'll establish a working relationship with both the EDC, but also Center for Economic Forecasting at CLU, and get monthly updates, especially in this crucial period when we close out or recover at the end of this crisis, and then start contemplating the forecast revenue impacts as a result of that. So we'll bring in every subject matter expert that we have access to and are connected to a network to, in order to have a tighter estimate of our forecast.
Yeah.
And also develop scenarios in case we have to start executing mitigations to stay within our budget.
Yeah, there's a lot of good information being formulated about the impact that COVID-19 is going to have on the county. And if we could drill down and kind of extrapolate some of that information on how it's going to impact us, I think that will really help us a lot in looking forward and projecting what kind of impact our budget's going to have, but what kind of community needs there's going to be. So I really think that we need to lean forward and try to look into the future as much as possible and begin planning accordingly.
And Mayor, to support that line of thinking and approach, we are planning to do a reforecast for the next year budget component of our approved budget, so that we can take all those particular elements into account and have a greater deal of accuracy based on current events.
Okay, very good. Thank you. I did a little bit of my own research, just as a side note here on some of the statistics that are out there. And, we have a population, according to EDC, we have a population 23,929. 14% of our population, according to 2015 statistics, is living under the poverty level. So that's about 3,400 individuals in Port Hueneme who are living below the poverty level. And that could be the number we're looking at in terms of those becoming marginalized or further compromised in their living situation due to COVID-19. So, what kind of resources are we going to have ready for these people who fall into further poverty as a result of COVID-19? I want to make sure that we're there and ready to help our residents who might be impacted in this way. Then the other thing, I had a question on the revenue, the general fund revenue. You said that there were some one-time additions. This was a statement on page 3 of the summary. Some one-time additions to our revenue source. Ken?
Yeah, that's correct. There was some sales tax that have been collected from prior years' activities. So they're not based on current year sales,
Oh,
but
okay.
prior years. So it's that, I think my memory was 650,000. That 650,000, when it
Right.
comes in, you can't expect it to come in year after year. So that's
Okay.
when you have multiple years, sometimes you have to have those anomalies as to why was 16, 17 so high or something like that. So
Right. Okay.
that's the reason for noting that specifically.
Okay, thank you. I think you brought that to our attention before, so appreciate that. Sorry if I forgot.
No problem.
The other question I had was on our unfunded liability, that there was a decision that $1 million would be directed toward that fund. And was that based on any kind of formula or strategy, or was that just kind of a round figure that you decided would be a
It
good
was
amount?
one that the conservative self that I am picked, and it wasn't decided. It was only a recommendation. Stephen Gama has brought this topic up a few times. It's really something that's a real long range, more than 2 years down the road kind of address that, Rod and I have started this when we funded some of that into PARS. But, like Pete Constant had said a couple months ago when he came, is that we've been putting some money towards this funding, but we don't have a specific strategy for that. We're kind of looking at what some specific strategies are, and what if we apply $1 million of our surplus towards that, whether it goes towards PARS or an additional payment to PERS. I'd like to get some more details down to in that regard to let council make the decision for that, because no matter what our recommendation, it will be your decision in the end.
Okay, I just want to know that whatever recommendation you're coming to us with is based on some kind of formula, maybe HDL, I'm not sure who our contractor is on this, that would provide us a strategic approach to how much we should be putting aside every year to bring that dollar amount down.
Yeah, we've kind of been looking at that, and we've, I think Pete Constant was one that is probably the most unbiased, and they really won't come up with, he said they would help us with a specific strategy, but when you go to some people, whether it's PERS or the PARS people, they're kind of have the bias from what their own perspective is. And I've been trying to find a financial advisor like somebody that you'd go to for issuing debt, but as to whether we should apply this money into a long range account that will beat CalPERS earnings estimates, or just pay it towards CalPERS and have those future cost increases that are projected be kind of limited and reduced out there.
Okay.
Without anybody giving me the specific facts, I'm more inclined to send the money over to PERS to try and reduce that money down. But Charles Bretz and I have been in discussion with some people at PERS and hoping to get one of their actuarials out to give us a presentation to kind of show us from their perspective, if we give them the extra money, why is it better than sending it off and investing it ourselves?
Okay. Councilman Gama, I saw your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Ken, I think that's great to get just get a number on a piece of paper is a great way to start the discussion. And if we all remember, Pete Constant's presentation was extremely long, dry, and it was tough. It was a tough one to sit through because it's so complex. And I think we left that item with the need to come back to drill down more through Pete so that he could give us some recommendations. And then I think the next step would be to hear from the PERS and PARs. And then at that point, we would have a bunch of information to consider and then make a decision. And then one of the things that I know and learned is that the time value of money is what we have in our pocket right now. And so the sooner we get through this process to make an informed decision and get funds diverted to address this, that bodes for us much better than, taking a very long time and, 3-4 years later try to address this. So there is urgency to get this question resolved so that we can benefit from the time value of money. So I think we should take the next step with Pete. And like Ken said, he's unbiased. It's a nonprofit. Well, I don't even think we have to pay for his services, but he's trying. Their nonprofit is there to help public agencies deal with this unfunded liability. And so I would hope that we could get back to that process.
Yeah, and I think from our reserve, what our reserve recommendation is really just kind of getting the council at a position where, yeah, that sounds like a good number. I mean, it was a round number. It was about 50% of what we would have left over. It will drop down those cost increases that they're forecasting in the future without a doubt. And really, it's just making sure the council's kind of on board. I know Stephen and I are both on that same page, but we need to make sure everybody else is before we spend any more council and staff time looking at this issue.
Okay.
I got a
Councilman
comment.
Rollins.
You had made a little mention. You were wondering whether or not it's best to give to PERS, because I know they will invest the money and they predict a certain investment rate, and that's why our rates stay the way they do. But then with the economy, the rates have gone down quite a bit because their investments have gone down quite a bit. Do you feel confident that we could do any better, or do you think it's better just to stick with them to do the investments?
What I really want to get from them is their earnings estimate for the long range has been reduced down to 7%. And what I want to see is somebody, maybe PERS, that can come to me and tell me, okay, if we earn the 7% rate on the investments, then are they charging us that same percentage rate on the unfunded liability that we have? If they make 11% in interest earnings for 1 year, are they charging us 11% on the debt? Or if that earnings went from 7 down to 4%, do they still charge us the 7% on the debt? That was one of the things that Pete Constant had said, that we weren't even covering the interest portion of the unfunded liability. And that's the real mystery, is to deciphering what is our actual costs from CalPERS. I've looked at it from a lot of different angles, and it's very, very tough. And I usually don't like, insurmountable challenges stopping me, but I was not able to get comfortable where I felt I could make that informed decision. But I think from a general nature, our investment portfolio that we have these PARS investments in is targeted at 7.5%. So with the theory being that maybe we lose a percentage in management fees, we're making 7.49, but PERS is only making 7, we'll be better off in the long term by that extra earnings. But when you start having losses and other things like that coming into play, it makes it a lot more difficult for me to accurately predict what our costs would be. And that was one of the things that Pete had said, that PERS gives us our projections out a few years, and year after year they'll change those. But that's because a lot of their assumptions change, and they've got so many assumptions that go into that makeup that it's almost like a shell game that you saw people used to do on the streets, where they'd move 3 cups around and you try and find the ball or something. It's just almost like a magic trick.
Yeah, my concern is, with the stock market taking a major dive as it is, how anybody is going to be able to adjust for that. I mean, like, 7% is a fairly good rate of return, I guess. And if we're losing 20 or 30%, whoever's doing the investing, do you know? I mean, from your experience, do you have any idea as to what PERS invests in and how affected they are by this big drop in the market?
A couple months ago, I started trying to see if I could dig into this myself and do the analysis. And I thought, oh, PERS earnings rate should be easily obtained. I went on the internet and I could not find those. I know every year as a PERS member, they send me a member statement, and they tell me what my member earnings pay. So theoretically, that should be the same information. But to try and find it year after year, you have to dig in through their press releases. It's not an easily obtained number. So as
Okay.
much as they like to tout transparency to everybody else, they are not that transparent for us member agencies that are kind of stuck with the costs that they charge us for our pension plan.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that they're going to be charging us a whole lot more now with the stock market taking a dive.
Yeah, those are when the CalPERS people come out here, those are the questions that I'd like to see asked, if it's not by you guys, by me, and then kind of sit back and watch how they address them.
Thank you.
Okay.
Councilman Rollins, we will be participating in a CalPERS webinar on Wednesday, and we will probably have updated information on how they are examining this current condition and what they're contemplating for future initiatives in order to resolve it.
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. McDonald, and thank you to all your staff. I know you all work very hard to put this together for us, so it's greatly appreciated. Any more comments at all
I have
from
one more question.
City Council? Councilman Gama?
I lost my mic. Do we have a budget calendar developed already? And what's our plan to work on our budget to be implemented on July 1, 2020?
Last year, we approved a 2-year budget, so we already have next year's budget in place. And what I'm hoping to do is between now and June, kind of go through any last minute revisions we have before that budget year starts, but we do have a budget in place.
But with the current situation, basically we've got to retool the whole budget, I imagine. I mean, we're going to have some unforeseen expenses for sure, and both on the revenue and expense side. So I just want to emphasize the importance of having a good, healthy budget, one that we could have a high confidence in, ready to go on July 1.
Yeah, and we have one that will definitely start us off the year right, but we do need to do some more analysis and wait for this situation to kind of get into the ending mode before we'll really be able to accurately come up with impacts. What I wouldn't want to do is, oh, let's do one increase or decrease or adjustment now and then have to come back and do it several times throughout the year. So if there is some significant changes, which I really want to make sure that our current staffing and the MOU increases are included in our salaries and benefits, and then any other type of items that we find that are going to be affected by this, we make those adjustments as soon as we're aware of them.
Okay, so my question then is, when can we expect to have you back and give us an updated budget report? When's your next scheduled report?
We really don't have a set time yet. If we get some more information, probably June might be a good time to come back, but it depending on when this whole issue ends as to what kind of information we get, we may want to come back in August or September with revisions for the year, and not wait until the mid-year point. So it's really going to be as the information becomes available. I just got some information from HDL on our sales tax and some of those. I don't think we're going to see any decreases there, but I think everybody's going to see some decreases in the TOT, the transient occupancy taxes for motels. There's nobody's in those motels, no revenues going forward. So that could be one that might be a year-end impact that we have here now that we haven't really fully addressed, but we don't really have any detailed information to get more accurate.
Okay. Woman Munoz, stop.
Yeah, so thank you, Mr. McDonald, for bringing up the TOT. My understanding is that because we have quite a bit of hotel rooms here that go to government that don't necessarily pay the TOT, that we don't have that much of an impact perhaps hitting our line item. I think on the high end, maybe we had gone over $500,000 in TOT revenue year to year. So maybe, a drop in that could be some money, but I mean, it's not a huge impact to our overall budget, right?
Yeah, and it could be that once the year ends and this situation ends, that it gets right back to the same pattern that we had before, and really it's just a decrease in this last quarter that we'll see.
Okay. Is that it? All right. Okay, so we're looking at a recommendation for the city council to conduct a mid-year budget review regarding the city's financial position based on the first 6 months of the fiscal year as of December 31st, 2019. Council is recommended to consider mid-year budget adjustments that are being proposed at this time, and to number one, receive and file the 2019-20 mid-year budget review. 2, approve proposed budget adjustments, and 3, discuss reserve recommendations. May I have a motion and a second for these 3 recommendations?
I move to approve.
Okay. Second?
Are we done discussing the recommendations?
I believe so. There have been no more questions. Did you have something else you wanted to discuss? I've given the last call a moment ago. Did you have something else?
No, but in terms of the, looking for the page where there is a recommendation to, I heard $1 million amount to move from our surplus into the unfunded liability. So anyway,
That's in here. Oh, yes, that's in here. Mhm.
Okay.
It's not specifically in the budget, so if we're going to make that payment, everybody's comfortable with it at this point in time. That actual action transferring that money from the reserve will come at a later date. It's not reflected in the budget. That's why it has discussed reserve recommendations. I kind of needed to get a feel from you as if you were kind of comfortable with our $1 million ballpark in relation to our reserve. If we come back in June and we say, hey, we're seeing a severe increase of 900,000, we're only going to anticipate having a $600,000 amount. Waiting towards the closer to the end of the year, maybe even in July, hey, we've had this was our preliminary year-end amount, and then we'll have specific details for council action on that.
Is that the only recommendation then that's part of this report, was the 1 million toward the pension liability? Or were there
No.
other, what were
The
other
mid-year
recommendations?
budget had all those individual adjustments, but the reserve amount was not in those
Okay.
individual adjustments.
So the adjustments are the recommendations. Is that correct?
Right.
That is correct. The reserve recommendation is separate from all of those items and really for discussion. The staff does have a previous action to examine and consider strategies for PERS, PARs, and investment with a financial advisor, so that we can make an appropriate formula, as you described, Mayor, for the proper.
We're losing your sound. We're having
Just,
problems.
just saying that the discussion we had in the previous set actually to examine a strategy and
Oh, we're having problems hearing you. Yeah. You're very garbled right now. There seems to be a technical problem. Hold on,
do one-
Councilman Rollins.
And I'll get one more.
Okay,
sound.
you're better now. You just need to speak up a little bit more.
No, I think you're right. I think there was a technical, I'm showing mute occasionally when I was talking. So we do have a staff action, and that was to examine a strategy, a formula, if you will, on how we would commit potential reserve funds in our retirement accounts. We have a suspense date of June for that. And we are moving forward with that analysis for you. That will inform the actual amount that we would bring to council for a transfer from the reserve. And we expect that in June.
Okay. Councilman Rollins.
I think that you just answered. So basically, we're setting aside $1 million, and you folks are going, staff is going to determine how best to implement that to the unfunded liability, whether it's, investing it through PERS or individually, or after you have that webinar, you're going to maybe even make an adjustment for that. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay. So we have a
Second.
Councilman, oh, thank you. Okay. So we have a motion to approve, a second. And may I ask the clerk for a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Rollins,
Yes.
Councilmember Gama,
Yes.
Councilmember Berg,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Munoz-Schnapp,
Yes.
and Mayor Hernandez.
Yes. Okay, thank you very much. So the mid-year 2019-20 budget review is approved. Moving on to the next item, we have council members' reports, comments, and requests for future agenda items. I'll begin with Council Member Berg.
Thank you very much. We did have a Gold Coast transit meeting and a meeting with VCTC by Zoom. Looked much like this one, and all our fellow agencies are suffering right along with us. So things are slowing down a bit right now, obviously. I would like for our very next meeting, if possible, to have a little more open discussion about what's going on at Hueneme Beach or what's not going on. And I'd like to hear some input from the other council members as to what's happening there. Rather than just getting it from the city itself, I'd like to hear from my fellow council members and perhaps develop a plan to address things like the request we had at the beginning of the meeting from Jack, what's Jack's last
McGrath.
name?
McGrath.
Yeah, to address those issues and to see if we can't make some minor adjustments that would be beneficial for our community.
Okay. So are you asking that to be put on the next agenda?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Anything else, Councilman Berg?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Councilmember Rollins?
Okay. I have not had any Zoom meetings with the places that I represent. Reach has not had a meeting. The Ventura County Air Pollution Board has not had a meeting. One thing, and I don't know if it's an agenda item, but it's a personal thing. We had a report by the executive director for the Ventura County Air Pollution Board regarding the effect of the Indy plant and the research that they had done. And darn it, last night I was outside and the sound was downright deafening from the Ventura County, from the Indy plant. I actually drove out there to see whether it in fact was coming from that plant, and it was. And I went to different parts, not only my house, I went over, drove over by where the hideaways were. I couldn't get in close to the Surfside because of the block, but it was downright loud. And they had assured us that they had put in some mufflers or something to that effect to kind of reduce the sound. And I swear it was the loudest that I had ever heard. So I somehow I think we probably need to follow up on that. On a good note, Tony Stewart got back to me, and they do have a city home rehabilitation program that can be used for citizens who, once they determine that perhaps their sidewalk that they're going to be responsible needs to be repaired, they do have a city home rehabilitation program where they can actually use those funds in case they can't afford it right away. So thank you, Tony, for bringing that back to me again and confirming that. I guess the number 3 thing that I wanted is to see if we could get an update on the Park and Rec Master Plan. I know that there's a survey out there because I saw it, I think through, was it Nextdoor? So I know there is some kind of a survey. It would be nice to see what that survey was, but I've heard that the survey is now going out into the community. And I wanted to see if we could kind of somehow get some kind of a coordination update as to the Rec and Park Master Plan. And then I know there's being work on the community center, and that's tied in with the architect. And I would like to get some kind of a report from staff as to how that's all being coordinated. It seems like a lot of good things are happening, but they're kind of happening at different things. And I'd like to see a coordinated effort. At least I'm sure there is a coordinated effort. I just like to see how that's actually happening.
Okay. All right. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. So my committees, I'll start with the Sister City Committee. So of course we didn't get to host the meeting, but it was a great Zoom call that we had. We had over 60 people attend, and we had everywhere from the co-chair of the International League of Sister Cities joining us from El Paso, to the new executive director at the DC office, to then folks from North and South. And it was a very lively discussion. Of course, as you could well imagine, that COVID that's hit the international scene was really front and center in terms of our topics. Discussing everything from trying to get the students that had just started or were in the middle of their exchange programs home, to then make sure that everybody who was here from other nations was able to get home, and ongoing discussions to keep the group really active through these next couple of months, but through Zoom calls. So it was a good group to have. And we even had folks that probably had never attended any of these other meetings join us. So it really energized, I believe, the committee that handles the Sister City program for California. On the water agency, hopefully we have a meeting coming up later this month, and I expect that to be on Zoom. And we did end up doing a reorganization this last month. And so we're headed up by Jared, who is out of the Channel Islands Beach Community District. And Councilmember Rollins serves then as the vice chair of that group. So that was something that was discussed last month. And then for the JPIA, I was actually chosen to serve on the executive committee of that board. And so my relationship with them is on a monthly basis. Of course, you could well imagine that the JPIA is looking at all these aspects of COVID, from their own employees who are working remotely, to then the member agencies. And so we're on board that train and we're taking a look at it pretty seriously. The great news about that is that each year we've had the annual meeting held in July at the JPIA offices, and this year we're actually moving the annual meeting to coexist with the annual conference that the JPIA has for all their members, which usually happens in October. And with this year in October, it'll be in Santa Barbara. So hopefully, as you all are, we're all part of JPIA, you'll take them up on the offer to attend these really pretty dynamic and very interesting discussions that they have from a perspective of what's going on in the insurance company to then or industry to then what's available for us as a member to take advantage of. So that's the JPIA. And last but not least, I'd like to see if there is an upcoming City Port Standing Committee. So I'd like to ask the city manager to take a look at maybe the last time that the committee did meet, and if there's anything that's on our docket in the near future to get that going, knowing that we have to take a look at, this community benefit fund and other things going on there. So I'd really appreciate then an update on that. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And I apologize, I haven't been addressing you by the correct title throughout the meeting, so I apologize for that.
Okay, no problem.
Okay. All right, Councilmember Gama.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I got a couple signs behind me. One of them says stay home, stay safe. And I just want everyone out there to continue doing as we're doing. Our county has done a magnificent job. Just look at the numbers and things seem to be really boding well for us. I also have a second sign that says practice universal precautions. That's very important. You want to treat everybody and yourself as if you're infected with this COVID-19, and the efforts that are being undertaken in this county are really paying off. So I really appreciate that. I know it comes with pain and we're all stuck at home, and I would like to see COVID on the agenda so that we could discuss issues that are happening, because we council members get peppered with questions when we're out and about, and I want to make sure I have the most up-to-date information. So I agree with Will Berg on that. Really appreciate our new city manager. I think the amount of work we're getting out of Brick is amazing. He's jumped into some very complex issues and provided us with really good information, particularly on the community fund. I really haven't been able to spend too much time on it, but the time I have spent on it, it really does encapsulate the spirit of the program and what our role is to be on that. And again, for somebody that has zero experience in it to come along and put together such a comprehensive report, I absolutely commend the work and greatly appreciate it. At the same time, for future agenda items, I think we need to address the advisory committee. And I know it's a thorn in Rollins's hide that we want to try and get that up and running. And there's a couple issues out there that I think that that we could focus in on and maybe get them producing results for the city. Unfortunately, I had a Beacon meeting on the 20th of March, and I had a conflict with my job, and it's a new job for me. And so they had a quorum, and I think they're scheduled to come out to us soon to give us an update on the transition plan that they're putting together for the next year. So we'll look forward to getting that update soon. Really appreciate Mayor Pro Tem Schnapps in organizing the JPIA meeting that city manager, myself, and her participated in. We want to make sure that we are utilizing all the available services and programs they have to benefit our staff and create a more safer city, make sure that we are on top of all the latest and greatest in risk management techniques, both for financing and control. I too am interested in a Parks and Rec update. And again, my personal opinion is it would be nice if we would see a survey before it goes out, because again, I was questioned and I had no idea that a survey was out. I had no idea what the questions were. And I think as a council, we should be given the benefit to have input on that. So that's, and there are some significant issues in our parks and recs, and I really think we need to give them more attention. Jack McGrath brought up a couple today that are very timely, yet when COVID's over, those issues are still there and they still need to be addressed. So I hope to be able to see some Parks and Rec master plan on the agenda. And with that, I just would like to tell everybody to stay home. If you're safer at home, practice universal precautions, and let's get through this COVID thing in a great result. Thank you.
Okay. Councilman Gama, did you want to comment on the sand replenishment program? I believe we received new information about the plans. I don't know how they're going to be impacted now that we have the COVID-19 situation, but I understand we are on schedule.
That's what we're hearing. And I think I would like to get an update directly from Beacon, because things are probably going to change. I imagine. I just don't know. Do we have a date for them, for Brian to come out and present?
Well, I think the report should come from Susie Watkins from Channel Islands Harbor. If we were going to ask for a report on that, since they're the ones who negotiated with Congress and the Army Corps of Engineers, they're the lead agency on that project. Perhaps we should ask them, and maybe Brian at the same time.
Sounds good to me. I think that would be great. Yeah, I think we should do that.
Okay.
And again, Beacon is in this transitional period, so there'd be two separate items that maybe we could do it on the same night.
Right. Kind of what I was thinking. Right. Okay. Anything else, Councilman Gama?
Thank you.
Okay, great. All right. I just had a couple of things. Like many of you, most of the committees have canceled, except committee meetings have canceled that I'm responsible for, except for the RDP 21. We have a strategic planning meeting coming up on Wednesday. Our trip to Washington that Mayor Pro Tem Munoz Snop and I were going to take has been canceled or postponed. We're not sure what the next steps are going to be, but I imagine we'll find that out on Wednesday when we have our RDP strategic planning meeting. So that will also be on Zoom. The Ventura Regional Sanitation District has also been holding meetings. We'll have a meeting, I believe, on Thursday with Zoom, if it hasn't been already canceled. So we're just proceeding with our conditional use permit under the VRSD agency, and we don't know how that's going to be delayed, if at all, due to COVID-19 and the county's involvement in that. So we'll have to stand by and see. And then strategic planning efforts are continuing. I've got a meeting with city manager and ARIA Consulting on Wednesday to proceed with that. I'm doing some fine tuning with the mission statement. So you will have an opportunity to see that again and weigh in. But Chris Grimm is encouraging me to make some slight changes to it. She wants me to look at some additional examples and maybe tighten it up a little bit without changing the intent. I have no agenda items other than the ones that have already been discussed. I would like to see a report from Channel Islands Harbor District on the sand replenishment program. So maybe that can get scheduled at a future meeting soon. And does anybody have anything else?
I do.
Yes, Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. kudos to the team for pulling this together, from city manager to city clerk to everybody who's, we can't see them here, but they have been active in the background to make sure that this Zoom call was going to go off without a hitch. So thank you so much.
I don't see on the agenda that we have a city manager's report. Do you not have a report, Mr. City Manager? Do you have anything you want to add before we adjourn?
No, I
Okay.
echo your praise for the staff and the team that number one has really stepped up and have accommodated all the various degrees of um, unique situations that we've had to accommodate in this declaration, in this emergency, and to persevere and sustain all the service and the service levels. And we do regret having to affect the community and deny them access to the beach. But we really want to push through this, win the fight, and then get back to business. And thank you for your kind comments, each council member, on behalf of the staff.
Okay. Councilman Rollins, you had a comment?
Yeah, I just want to reinforce, I want to thank especially City Clerk Christie for guiding me through this Zoom process and spending the time to make sure that I'm able to handle it in an effective manner. So thank you, Christy.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. My pleasure.
Okay. All right. This is just a reminder for our public that detailed information and updates about COVID-19 can be found on the City of Port Huenemy's emergency website at www.porthuenemyemergency.org. So we encourage everyone to keep up to date on what's happening with COVID-19. This week is supposed to be the tough week. If you're feeling extra pressure to stay at home, that's because everybody needs to really ramp up and tighten up their protection and their stay-at-home measures, because this week is supposed to be the heavy week where we really need to make a difference. With that, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting. The time is 8:27. Thank you, everybody, and thank you, staff. The meeting is adjourned until Monday, April 20th, 2020, 6:30 p.m. Thank you again. Good night.